Hi friends, in today's current affairs session, we'll discuss an important legislation that was recently passed by both the houses of parliament, that is the Election Laws Amendment Act. The Election Laws Amendment Act. (2021). So this is an amendment act. This is an amendment act. Amendment to which act? It's not an amendment to the Election Laws Act. This is not an amendment to the Election Laws Act. There are two different laws that are dealing with these elections in our country. We are amending those laws and combinedly we are calling it as Election Laws Amendment Act. And one particular bill that what we have brought into the Parliament of India has amended both the acts at a time. And those two acts are the Representation of People Act, the Representation of People Act of 1950 and the Representation of People Act of 1951. So there are two legislations in our country called Representation of People Act 1950 and the Representation of People Act of 1951. And these two legislation deals about the election process in India. Now we are amending these two legislations with a one particular new bill called this Election Laws Amendment Act. Now it's no way a bill, it's an act. It has passed. It has amended these two existing legislations. What are these two legislations and why that new amendment brought, and what are the implications of that new amendment, and does it really sufficient to achieve our intended targets or what we are expecting from this society, and what are the other problems that we are facing, and what are the criticism on this amendment that we will now looking into. See, this Representation of People's Act of 1950 and Representation of People Act of 1951, as far as the election process is concerned, our Indian Constitution has not specified any specific thing about how the election should be conducted. The thing is, we have our Constitution have a mention about the Chief Minister, Prime Minister, and they are the leader of the House, and that means they in turn elected from the Member of Parliament or Member of State Legislature. And for the free and fair conduction of the elections, you are having the Election Commission of India. But how the election process should be conducted, and how the nominations will be filed, how the voters will be exercise their franchise, these are all things are delegated or give it to the Parliament of India. Accordingly, Parliament of India has made various legislations and devised new practices so that we are conducting the elections and we are running our country. Now in this, the first one is Representation of People Act of 1950. It deals about allocation of the seats, that means which seat is allotted to whom, and for how many, for which state how many seats to be allocated, and the adjustment of that allocation we call it as delimitation of constituencies for the purpose of election, and qualification of voters, and preparation of electoral rolls. So these are the different aspects dealt by 1950s Act. So it's all about electoral rolls, it's all about qualification of voter. So who will be the voter and how much age he should have. So these type of things that is having in the year 1950. When it comes to the 1951 Act, it deals about the conduct of elections, offences and disputes related to the election. In the year 1951 Act, and the allocation of seats and delimitation of the constituencies and qualification of voters and the preparation of electoral rolls in the year in the 1950s legislation. Now we are amending these two legislations with respect to, with this present Election Laws Amendment Act of 2021. It was passed recently in the Parliament of India. Now what are the major changes that brought? But before the major changes they brought to this legislation, I'll just give some why actually they have brought this amendment. Why actually they have brought this amendment? See, in the objectives of that particular legislation or that particular bill, when they brought, they said like, whatever the provisions that we are bringing these provisions in order to curb menace of multiple enrollment of the same persons in different places in electoral rolls. That means a single person is enrolled as a voter in different locations. That means a single person is having multiple votes in different locations. This is something wrong. A person should cast his vote only in a one particular location. He can't go and participate in the elections of 3 to 4. No, he has to cast the vote for one MLA. He can't simultaneously cast the vote for 2 to 3 MLAs. So that is something wrong. That is something wrong. So in order to curb the menace of this multiple enrollment of the same person in electoral rolls at different places, that is something concerning in our Indian electoral system. And apart from this, there are many problems are there, but in the reform process, this particular legislation is going to address that problem of the multiple enrollment by a single person in a different places. So that is the main objective of this particular legislation. And apart from that, they have brought some 2 to 3 different issues related to their enrollment and related to the gender neutrality. So I'll come to that aspects. Now the first important change that they have brought is actually, before you understand the change, I'll explain how actually you will get or your name will be enrolled in the electoral rolls. So according to the legislation, the persons, that means the Indian citizen who is having the above 18 years of age has to apply for, first he has to apply to the electoral registration officer, because electoral registration officer is the officer in charge for this enrollment. Now you have to apply for that, because I attained the age of 18, I am residing at so and so address, and this is my age proof and this is my address proof. So I wanted to enroll as a voter in this particular constituency. So you will apply first. Once you apply, this electoral registration officer will verify whether the details given by you, whether they are correct or not, and after that, if he satisfy that the details furnished are correct, then he will be entitled for that registration. That means automatically his name will be added to the electoral rolls. This is how a particular person's name will enter into this electoral rolls. So you are having a different electoral roll for the assembly constituency, and you will having another role for parliamentary constituency. Anyhow, now the amendment what they have brought is, the first amendment is, it is linking electoral roll data with the Aadhaar. Linking this electoral roll data with the Aadhaar. So how they will link the Aadhaar data with this electoral roll data? First, whenever you are applying, your electoral registration officer may ask you to furnish your Aadhaar furnish your Aadhaar for establishing your identity. That means to establish the identity, your ERO can ask this Aadhaar, then you have to furnish it. That means at the time of enrollment, they may ask for the Aadhaar. First point. Second point. But you are not a new person in the electoral rolls. You are already existed in the electoral rolls. Now the same ERO can also ask the existing persons in the electoral rolls. That means those whose name is already in the electoral rolls, for them also the ERO can ask to furnish the details of Aadhaar for authentication. Here it is for identification, here it is for authentication. Identification in the sense you belongs to so and so address and just give the data, and they will link Aadhaar with your name and your electoral ID, and they will add you in the electoral rolls. But if your name is already there in the electoral rolls, for the authentication purpose they may ask the Aadhaar details. What is that meaning of authentication? Authentication in the sense, suppose if you given your Aadhaar number, they will check whether on this Aadhaar number you are having a voter ID anywhere in the other part of the country. Suppose you are registered yourselves as a voter in this particular constituency, now they will authenticate whether you have the voter ID in any other parts of the country, that means in any other constituencies or not. Likewise, if you are having if your name is enrolled in any other places, that means more than one places, then definitely they will remove that and they will finalize this roll. That means with this process, those who are entering, there is a uniqueness to them, and those who are already enrolled, now the authentication will be done. Why they have chosen this Aadhaar? Because this Aadhaar is unique. So it is recorded with your, it is having, the Aadhaar is not just a number, that number is stored, the number stored your iris and as well as fingerprint data. And this iris and fingerprint data cannot be duplicated. So that's the reason why a single person can have a single Aadhaar. A single person can have the single Aadhaar, and that Aadhaar, now if you link it to the electoral rolls, there is no chance that the people will have a second vote anywhere, because you have the unique number. So by linking this unique number to the electoral rolls, definitely we can remove the whatever the unscrupulous or the dually registered or the doubling of your name. Suppose if any your name appeared in any different constituencies, those things will be eliminated. So this is first one. And here the point is, the act also says like, suppose if you don't furnish the Aadhaar, then what will happen? There is a provision in the act itself that not entering your name into the electoral rolls or deletion of your name for the electoral rolls just because you haven't submitted the Aadhaar is something wrong. That means we are not going to enroll your name in the electoral roll, or we are not going to remove your name just because you haven't submitted the Aadhaar. That means Aadhaar is not a mandatory thing. To enroll your name in the electoral rolls or to be in the electoral rolls. So if you don't submit, there is no problem. That means it is creating a choice. But again they have introduced another word called, you need to furnish the Aadhaar number. But if at all you are not furnishing the Aadhaar number, for that there must be a sufficient cause. There must be a sufficient cause, and that sufficient cause will be prescribed by the union government. That means you must have the Aadhaar number, you must have the Aadhaar number, and Aadhaar number must be linked to this. And suppose if you are unable to furnish the Aadhaar number also, we are not denying the opportunity to you, but the point is why you are not submitting the Aadhaar, there must be a sufficient cause, and that cause is prescribed by the union government. Simply by holding the Aadhaar in your pocket, if you say that I don't want to furnish, that may not be an appropriate cause. So even without Aadhaar also you can enroll and you can have your name in the electoral rolls, but there must be a sufficient cause. That cause will be prescribed by the union government. In total, if you understand this one amendment, they want to link Aadhaar with the electoral rolls at the time of entry, and those who are already having their names in the electoral rolls, in order to remove this duplication. Second one, even if you don't have the Aadhaar, they don't deny the opportunity to you to register yourself as a voter and to be in the electoral rolls, but the reason for not furnishing should be having a sufficient cause, and that cause itself will be described by the union government. Next, so this is the first one, that means linking of Aadhaar with the electoral rolls. Second one is the qualifying date for enrollment in electoral rolls. Qualifying date for enrollment in electoral rolls. We all know that citizens of India who attained 18 years of age are eligible to enroll in the electoral rolls. The point is, on which day you have to attain the age of 18. Some people attain the age of 18 on January 1st. Some people attain the 18 years of age on May 1st. Some people attain the age on December 30. So it's all depending on people. But what day you consider it as attainment of age? So earlier it was the January 1st. That means suppose we are in 2022. In the year 2022, January, by the time of January 1st, if you are already 18 years of age, then your name will be enrolled into the electoral rolls. But the point is, when this electoral rolls prepared, these electoral rolls prepared based on the election commissions, both at the union and state, and they may do exercise at an appropriate time. Maybe they will do it in March, they will do it in September, they will do it in October. There is some specific, actually this should be a continuous process. But the point is, suppose if they are doing it in May, just assume they are doing it in May. Now if you are doing it in May, suppose if a person attained the 18 years of age on August 1, then he is not entitled to enroll it in the electoral rolls. Even if it is March 1st also, that means a person is attaining an age on March 1st also, he is not eligible, because your condition says like by the time of January 1st you should attain 18 years. Just a 2 months difference, he got 18 years on March 1st, but still he is not eligible. That means literally he has to complete 18 years of age in the previous year, but not in this year. This is denying the opportunity of some people. So that's the reason why what we said is this qualifying date for enrollment in the electoral rolls, in the year 1950 Act it was there, and we have amended it to January 1st, April 1st, April 1st, July 1st, July 1st, October 1st. July 1st, October 1st. These 4 dates are now qualifying dates for enrollment into the electoral rolls. Now suppose just assume you are doing this activity in the May, enrollment activity. Now the person who attained the age of 18 years by January 1st will be enrolled. The person who attained the age by April 1st is also enrolled. That means the people who are attained the age between age of 18 between January 1st to April 1st all are eligible, and in between July 1st also eligible, in between October 1st is also eligible. That means the people who are attaining an age of 18 now they are having an opportunity throughout the year to enroll in the electoral rolls. You may get a doubt, sir, if they attain the age on December 20, then what will happen? They have to enroll it in the next year, because by that time of next year January 1st they will attain the age of 18. So that means the qualifying dates now they have made it flexible. Earlier it was only January 1st, but now they are making it January 1st, April 1st, July 1st and October 1st. Throughout the year they are having the facility and they can enroll. Otherwise it was very difficult earlier. This is second amendment. Next, third one. So the third amendment is about the gender neutral provision. Gender neutral provision. So what is this gender neutral provision? So in order to make this gender neutral provision, they have amended both the 1950 Act and 1951 Act. But what is this gender neutral provision? In the 1950 Act, because that Act is giving some sort of qualification to be eligible for a voter. So now there are some voters are there in our political system. That voters, apart from regular voters, we are having some service voters. So who are these service voters? Service voters are something like the persons who are working in the armed forces, and the people who are working under government but they are working abroad. That means if you go and if you work in abroad, you will not be considered it as a service voter, but if you work under the government and under government mission, if you are working abroad, that means those who are working in this diplomatic missions of the foreign country. Anyhow, so the people who are working in armed forces and the people who are working in the government but they are working abroad, we call these two people as the service voters. And when you classify these people as the service voters, they have the facility of this postal ballot. That means now they can vote by using the postal, because the Election Commission of India will send it in a post, that ballot paper you have to send it back. Now the 1950 Act says that the wives of, or you can singular, you can call it as wife. So the wife of a person of armed force or a person working abroad under the government, now the wives of those people can also be considered as service voters. But there is another question. Suppose if a woman is working either it in armed forces or working as working under the government in abroad, then the husband of that woman will be considered as an service voter. That provision was not there in the 1950. So the provision in the 1950 and 51 Act says that the wives of those people can be considered as a service, but now women are working everywhere. That is the reason why we changed this wives and wife with spouse. So now it is applicable to both when it comes to the service voters, because whenever they are working abroad, they will try to take their family there. So you should not deny the opportunity for that couple. So that's the reason why we have brought this amendment called, instead of wives we are saying spouse. So now the spouse of anyone who is working in armed force and who is working in abroad under government can also be considered as the service voter. Service voter. So this is another amendment that we have brought. These are the three major amendments that they have brought. One major amendment is about linking Aadhaar with the electoral data. Second one is the date for or the qualifying date for enrollment in the electoral rolls that we have liberalized. And third one is we have made a gender neutral provision as far as the service voters are concerned. As far as the service voters are concerned. Now, in these three provisions, the most interesting provision is the first provision. First provision. Second and third, there is no controversy, that should be available. The only thing is the first one. What is that first one? Linking Aadhaar with the electoral data. Linking Aadhaar with the electoral data. Now the reason that the government is saying, like, if a person is having multiple votes in a multiple constituencies, is it really good? Is it really good? Does really government is having any, does really the Election Commission of India is having any data on this multiple votes? They don't have the data, but some of the survey shows like this is not a major thing, but still this type of votes are there. This is not a major problem, but still this type of voters are there. We need to eliminate or we need to abandon with them. Anyhow, we will do. For that, what is the instrument that we are using? We are using Aadhaar as the instrument. Aadhaar as the instrument because of its uniqueness. Because of its uniqueness. Just now I have explained. Now the point is, can an Aadhaar be used for this elimination of the duplicated votes? We are not supporting the duplicate votes should be there. We are opposing that duplication of votes. But the point is, can you use this Aadhaar? Can you use this Aadhaar? Because on Aadhaar already there was a judgment in Puttaswamy case. In the Puttaswamy case judgment, case Puttaswamy case judgment, the Supreme Court has clearly mentioned like right to privacy is the fundamental right. Right to privacy is the fundamental right under Article 21. Under Article 21. This Aadhaar is taking away the privacy of the individuals, but Aadhaar can be used only in certain aspects, like when you are getting any benefits from the government of India. That means any beneficiary that getting some sort of benefit from the consolidated fund, then definitely they have to furnish because it is intended to reduce the leakages. So now the most of the people are quoting this Aadhaar cannot be used in everywhere, because the government initially when it informed to the Supreme Court like no we are only using this for the plugging of leakages, but we don't use it for other. But now they started using this Aadhaar for everything, though they are saying like it's not a compulsory thing, it's a choice, but at the same time you cannot deny the furnishing of Aadhaar in an arbitrary way, because they are clearly saying like the reason for not furnishing should be something a sufficient reason, that too they will prescribe the reason. So that means it looks like they are having a choice, but they may not have the choice. But some people for whom it will be really difficult to get the Aadhaar, for them it's okay. But wantedly you can't deny that I don't have the Aadhaar, so I don't give. But anyhow, can you use that Aadhaar? According to the privacy judgment, Aadhaar you can't use it for this electoral removing this electoral loopholes. And the main problem with this Aadhaar is having some crucial information like your fingerprint and iris, they can be misused. The data can be misused. And the long pending demand in India and the Parliament of India, that means now it is with the parliamentary committee, they are struggling to bring that legislation, that is data protection law. So until and unless we bring this data protection law, it is very difficult to convince the people of this country that give your Aadhaar data, we will use only it for the good purpose of the country, but we don't misuse the data. No one believes simply, because the only apprehension is that if I give my personal data, you can misuse it. You in the sense you alone, someone can misuse it, someone can take it the data. That is the reason why we must have the data protection law. Until and unless you don't have this data protection law, it is very difficult to accept. It is very difficult to accept this Aadhaar cannot be misused. But anyhow, now the legislation is passed, we need to. Ultimately, the constitutionality of this legislation will be decided by the Honorable Judiciary. But the point is that there are some apprehensions. Those apprehensions can be only allayed when you bring this data protection law. Unfortunately, there is a delay in bringing this data protection law. Data protection law. Your intention is good. Your intention is good. But the mechanism you are using, is creating some more problems. Some more problems. So this is one of the major apprehensions that is raised by some of the people, and it is infringing the fundamental rights. You are saying like you are protecting data, you will protect the data, but no one knows. No one knows. So that is why it may infringe on the fundamental rights of the people, because this right itself has declared as a fundamental right by the Supreme Court in Puttaswamy judgment. Second one is voting is a legal right. Voting is a legal right. Now you are taking away the legal right just by using the Aadhaar. Does really owning an Aadhaar or having an Aadhaar, getting an Aadhaar is a legal right for you? No. But you are taking away a legal right. You are taking away a legal right with this Aadhaar Act. Does it really acceptable? Does it really acceptable? Is another important aspect. Because in the year 2015, at that point of time, already Election Commission of India has started a pilot project in linking this electoral rolls with the Aadhaar. It's a pilot project. But immediately in the year 2015, at that point of time, the Puttaswamy judgment has not delivered, and the question of Aadhaar, the validity of Aadhaar or the credibility of Aadhaar itself is in question in the year 2015. At that point of time, Supreme Court has stopped this process. Now you are saying like Aadhaar is now Aadhaar I can use it for this electoral purposes, and what you are saying is I am using this Aadhaar to make this entire electoral process more credible, and by linking with this I am not taking away the privacy of anyone. Whether you are taking away the privacy of anyone or not cannot be decided by you, but it will be decided by the judiciary. It will be decided by the judiciary. Your intention is clear, your intention is very good, like you wanted to eliminate the duplicate voters. But for that you are using Aadhaar because it's having uniqueness. That uniqueness itself is having some sort of privacy concerns. So that is the reason why this was questioned by some people, like whether it is constitutional or not. But only Supreme Court will decide. So once you understand this, it's not a criticism, but some point that we need to understand as far as the Aadhaar is concerned. Now I will put some more questions, like now once the legality is over, because legality will be decided by the Supreme Court, but the government is saying like, no, you are misquoting the judgment. So you have not understood the judgment properly. What we are saying, only in the interest of the country and only in the interest of the electoral process, only to enhance the credibility of the system or credibility of the process. But let the Supreme Court decides or how the government is going to convey to the Honorable Judiciary, or if someone questions it, or otherwise how will give it to the people. But the intention is good, that the laws, the multiple voters are really a big problem, really a problem in this country. But the number, we don't have a clear cut number, but it is having a less number, but still that is also not acceptable. Now I'll put some different questions with respect to the same electoral process, because we brought some legislation and we are claiming like now with this we are going to change the electoral system. But does really this electoral processes or this electoral rolls are completely cleaned because of this amendment? So now I am looking into some of the things. The first one is, when I say Aadhaar is unique, But can it be possible for a person to have two different Aadhars? Can it be possible for a person to have two different Aadhaar numbers? Suppose if he is having two different Aadhaar numbers, he can have 10 different Aadhaar numbers, because he can, the one who is generating 2, he can also generate 3 and generate 10. So if a person is having multiple Aadhars, he can also enroll in different places with that different Aadhaar. Even if you link with that Aadhaar, there is no use. There is no use. But the point is, can a person is having more than one Aadhaar? The Aadhaar or the institute Aadhaar, UIDAI, they are saying like it's not possible to have, but if you have it, you will be prosecuted. That means if you have, you will be prosecuted, means there is a chance that you may get it. You may get it. And how you will get it? It's all about technology. Technology to some extent can be tampered. To some extent it can be tampered. That's the reason why, but the number of people who are owning more than one Aadhaar is very less, very minimal. We cannot consider it as a general rule, but I am saying still it is a possibility. I am saying still it is a possibility, because the Gujarat High Court itself ordered like, see, this person is having two Aadhars, which one is original, please authenticate it. The Gujarat High Court has given that order in the year of 2020, in the year 2020. So that means sometimes this multiple Aadhars can be possible. So that is first thing we need to understand. But still I am saying like the possibility of owning two Aadhars is very difficult, but some cases are there. It is very minimal, negligible cases. Second one. See, the main problem you need to understand here, we are saying like a person is having the multiple votes in a multiple locations. That's what. And if you bring Aadhaar, just assume like one person can have only one Aadhaar, and with that Aadhaar you cannot have two different votes in a two different locations. That means just assume I am in Trivandrum, so I am having a vote, this is my voter ID, and at the same time I am also having a vote in Kollam. Just assume Kollam, I am also having a voter ID. Now if I link my Aadhaar with this voter ID, then immediately I have to link my Aadhaar with this voter ID also. If my Aadhaar is same, one vote I have to lose. So just assume I am losing my vote in Kollam, now I am having in Trivandrum. It's perfect, it's good. But the point is, here just they are comparing the Aadhaar. Just assume a scenario, because this is mostly happening in different parts of the country. Suppose when the elections happened in rural area, and rural area elections and urban area elections, they may not happen at the same time. In the rural area, what we are doing is, whenever there is a rural area election, some political parties, they are bringing some people from urban area, they are enrolling their names in the rural electorals, and ultimately they are making it as a voters of that particular village, and these people will definitely cast the vote to a particular political party who is helping them to enroll here, so that they gain majority. And after this rural election is over, and again these people themselves will register here in the urban area. That means here person is not having the electoral roll, the person is not having the votes simultaneously at two places. No, they are having the vote at a particular place at a particular point of time, and after that they are having the vote in another location at another point of time. Does your Aadhaar is going to stop this? Because your Aadhaar, okay, here when you have Aadhaar, okay, you are having only one vote, and now you are deleting here and you are having here. That means your address is changed multiple times. Does really when you are linking with the Aadhaar, are you looking into whether the address is matching or not? And there is no guarantee that address should not be matched always. It's all depending on the person. Today I am staying in Trivandrum, tomorrow I can go to another place, day after tomorrow I can go to another place. Likewise, wherever I find a livelihood, I go there. But how you will stop this menace? This is a very big problem, and it is happening in case of this council elections, because in the legislative council, not more states are having this legislative council. In the legislative council also, because few voters are there and we are bringing some unscrupulous people from somewhere and we are adding these people as the voters here. And after the elections again you are cleaning the process and these people are going and they are staying in the same area. Now in the urban area they are bringing some people from rural area and they are enrolling it as a voters. Once the election is completed, again they are going back to their own rural area. This is how they are trying to manipulate. Does really linking of Aadhaar is going to solve the problem? Because here the people are not having the multiple votes at a particular point of time, but they are having a different votes at a different particular point of time at a different places. This is another serious concern. This is the major problem compared to that of having a single person having a vote at multiple places. Because suppose if the elections are conducted across the country in one day, you can't go and you can't cast the vote twice. But if it is a delay, yes, that problem is there. But this is much more bigger problem than this. So this is another important serious problem as far as the electoral rolls are concerned. Next, I'll bring another third important issue. Now, vote one, and that too in the earlier example you can't, suppose if you really conducting the votes to the rural area, urban area and the assemblies, and if you are doing it on one day, then it will be no problem. That means if you conduct the election simultaneously to all the bodies on one day, you don't get this problem. But if there is a gap, this gap in the sense a limited amount of gap may not be a big problem, but if the gap is widens, then definitely there is a scope to do all these mischiefs. So that is how we need to understand the problem, and we try to reduce this time period and try to conduct the election simultaneously as if as possible. And suppose if you are unable to conduct those elections, simultaneously, you may get this problem. Next, third point. One particular person is voting on behalf of another person. Can your Aadhaar really stops that? And this has to be dealt at the local level. That means the persons who are sitting at the electoral office, they have to be very strict. Otherwise, stopping the people who is casting on behalf of other person, it's not a correct, and your Aadhaar cannot stop it. That means I am just listing out the problems that the electoral system is facing. Next, the fourth one is deleting the votes of the deceased person. If a person is died, are we really deleting those votes? And how your Aadhaar is going to provide the solution to that? Your Aadhaar is not going to provide any solution to that, because deceased persons, when the municipality or when the Gram Panchayat issuing the certificate, at the same time they must send that information to the electoral registration officer that I am issued a death certificate to this person, and you please remove it from the electoral rolls. And your Aadhaar can't do anything for this. Next, deleting the valid voters. Sometimes the valid voters are getting deleted from the electoral rolls. Does your Aadhaar is going to stop this? No. That means I am not saying like this process should not be happened, but there are many other problems are also there. Until and unless you solve all these problems, until and unless you solve all this problem, we cannot completely clean the electoral process. Just because if you brought one amendment and with that particular thing, it cannot be resolved. It cannot be resolved. Because there are various issues that are associated with the same electoral rolls. You are talking about only one aspect of that electoral roll, like one person is registered at a multiple places, so I want to remove it. Okay, you do it, but who will solve all these things? Who will bring amendments to all these things? It is your responsibility. And until and unless you solve all this, and if you solve only one thing, can we really make this electoral process so credible? It's not possible. You can't make it a so credible system. So that is the reason why you must keep all these points in your mind. I am only talking about these electoral processes. And apart from this, there is a problem of money power, muscle power, mafia power, criminalization of the electoral system, communalization of the electoral system, caste play an important role in electoral system, corruption in electoral system. These are all different things that we have to address it. But as far as the electoral system is concerned, this is the thing. Now, you must create a facility to the public that you can go regularly to verify whether your name is there or not in the electoral rolls. Just 1 week prior, you release the data and you will ask your citizens to see whether your name is there in the electoral rolls. Do you think that within 1 week is it possible to change the electoral names? It's not possible. So that's the reason why you must create a regular mechanism to see that, and wherever the valid votes are missing, you must be very careful about this missing of valid votes, and also remove or update the electoral rolls as soon as possible, and that means at a regular interval of time. And that too, this multiple removal and multiple entries during the election times in both rural and urban in different constituencies, that must be avoided. And for that we need to bring much more stringent solutions. Then only we can make this electoral system so credible. So this is what you need to understand from this amendment. That means the amendment what we have brought is good, but it's not sufficient to clean the entire electoral processes. And the amendment what we have done itself is posing some challenges as far as the constitutionality is concerned, but you and me are not the right person to decide the constitutionality. Again, the Supreme Court will decide the constitutionality of this. Okay, so this is something about the electoral or the Election Laws Amendment Act 2021. Okay, thank you.
Amrita IAS Academy.